Hey, how's it going, everybody? David here. And in honor of Star Wars Day, may the 4th be with you, I decided to do a quick video regarding Star Wars. a lot of there are a lot of channels dedicated to it, like guys like the Stupendous Wave, although he does more media other than Star Wars, but lately he's been doing a lot of Star Wars. Star Wars Minute, Fact Free. There's all these places that they do Star Wars retelling, Star Wars. They talk about the Star Wars books. They talk about all sorts of stuff, all kinds of stuff. Just Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. And as you guys know, I live and breathe Star Wars. At least I hope you know that by now. But anyway, one thing that I've always had an issue with in the Star Wars universe is that although the prequels and the original trilogy are supposed to be one linear timeline, there's obvious glaring plot holes that go throughout. So I've always had kind of like a theory to make the prequels better or to make the story more linear. So this is basically like a what if kind of a retelling of Star Wars. Total. It's totally my brain. I'm gonna be borrowing stuff from like the EU and stuff that we've seen, stuff that already exists, Star Wars Rebels, all of that. And so it's not 100% mine. It's just a retelling with the material that's already been presented, and it's basically just my fan fiction of this. So the way I would do it if I wrote Star Wars and all that. Obviously, you start at the very beginning. We're gonna start with the Phantom Menace. We're not gonna start original trilogy and then tell the story backwards. So one thing is no fucking Jar Jar, no Gungans at all. To be honest, just get rid of them altogether. I just want to get that out of the way. I personally, I enjoy the Darth Jar Jar theory. I think it's a great theory. I think that's if you're a great animator or whatever, make an animated film about that. If you're a fanfic writer or whatever, write that shit. That's a very compelling story, and it does make a lot of sense if you try. It wouldn't take a lot of work to factor that into the current canon. Like it really wouldn't. But ultimately, it didn't happen, so get rid of it. So no Jar Jar. And second thing, we're the prequel trilogy. It was a mess tonally, so you have to pick a tone and stick with it. Obviously, like if you watched the Clone Wars, the overall theme is like war is hell, war sucks. There's a lot of shit that goes down in Star Wars, the Clone Wars. So the prequels, we're gonna pick a theme, which one is obviously gonna be war, which is gonna take more. It's gonna be more front and center in Attack of the Clones and in the Revenge of the Sith, but ultimately the films are also political thrillers. Because think about it, what happens in the Phantom Menace? Phantom Menace is a story about a corporation that's literally taking people hostage. It's in some far off land they take them hostage, and then we send like agents to go check out what's going on. It's literally a political thing. The Sith, Darth Sidious, all of that, very political. I think you can tell that through a very through a political thriller lens, because Star Wars is a lot of stuff. It's fantasy, it's sci-fi, it's kind of sword and sorcery. Like there's literally like Jedi are literally space wizards. So it's a lot of stuff. So I think telling it through the lens of a political thriller would work. And so this evil corporation, the Trade Federation, they put a blockade over this planet illegally, by the way. I don't know why they said, "Oh yeah, this blockade is illegal." This should be like, these guys are fucking up. Like these guys are literally doing illegal shit. Like, like in the real world, like Coca-Cola owns fucking Ecuador or some shit. Like they own some place where they have them working, for hours and stuff like that. Don't sue me, Coca-Cola. Corporations do evil shit. We know that. It's a fact of life. They deny it. We're like, oh yeah, but blah blah blah. But we know low key that they do that shit, and they know that we know, but everybody just pretends it's not happening. Anyway, Trade Federation takes over this small planet, and we're gonna make it a monarchy, a constitutional monarchy, have a royal family, and that's where Padme comes in. I have no idea why George Lucas thought it was a good idea to have a 14-year-old girl be the reigning queen of Naboo. I thought that was fucking stupid. Makes no sense. Why give a little girl that much political clout? But so we have to set up a situation that forces a 9-year-old little girl, and I'm making her younger too, by the way, because the dynamic between her and Anakin was weird. Like somehow they managed to fall in love and all that. She was older than him, not much older. I think she was like Anakin was 9 in canon and she was 14, so that's what is that, 6 year difference? 5 year difference. So she was like 25 in 24, 25. She should have been a little bit more mature and she should have been able to say, you know what, we're not going to fucking hook up. That's a no go because, we're going to fuck my career up, your career up. There's just too much stuff. She should have been more in control of herself. I know 25 is young, but, at this age, we're still thinking ahead of some shit. And Anakin is a hormonal 19-year-old. He's still kind of coming on the cusp of manhood. And that's why he was so, his emotions were tearing him apart and all that. So we're gonna make her the same age as Anakin, 9 years old. We have the king, the queen. We have her older sister Sola, that she existed for people don't fucking know, and we have her. She's the youngest. The blockade, they're taking over all this stuff. The Jedi get sent in like normal. Again, no Gungans. Then they realize this shit's going down. There's these people took over, and they're gonna starve these people if they don't get what they want from them. Because we'll make something up. Maybe one of Naboo's moons has a rare metal that the Trade Federation wants to get their hands on or something. We can come up with some brief little exposition to explain it away. And then same situation. They need to get to the thing so they could protest and get the government to basically step in and say kick them out because Naboo is totally under lockdown. So they send Sola and Padme, and that's the sister's name, by the way, Sola. Anyway, so they go off and they try and get them off, and they fail to get Sola. Sola's like 15 or 16 at this point. So the little 9-year-old little girl is the one that gets taken aboard along with Palpatine, who is the senator for Naboo. They're the only ones who manage to escape, and they escape with the Jedi and all that. Blah blah blah. So now they're on their way to the Empire. They're on their way to the Republic. They crash land on Tatooine as normal, and Qui-Gon does not get off. He sends Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan is the main character of this movie. He's the one that's going to bond with Anakin because him and Anakin always had kind of a strained relationship, and in the original trilogy they're like, oh, he was the best of friends. So I think we need to put their relationship front and center. So they crash, and the master says, you know what, I'll take care of the ship, the crew, everybody here. If something happens, because we definitely need to protect the ship. Because if scavengers come and they kill everybody and take it, then we're never gonna get the fuck off Tatooine. So he sends the little girl Padme with Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan, he's still a young Padawan. He's still learning and all that. And even though he's on the cusp of knighthood, he's pretty much a knight already because, as we saw in the Phantom Menace, he said, I'm ready, and they're like, the council will decide. So obviously that the council and Obi-Wan have butted heads at some point, and Qui-Gon. So he's like, okay, we need to divide and strategically. You can't keep all of your eggs in one basket. So I'll guard the ship. I'm the master, more experience. I've actually fought in wars and all that. You've got limited battle experience. You can protect a little girl. So they get sent off. So and that's how they communicate. They run into Anakin and all that, and of course the little boy, little girl, they like each other. Anakin is going to be way more somber in this movie. None of that yippee shit. That was fucking stupid. I don't understand why they made Anakin so happy-go-lucky. This is a kid who has suffered from the very moment that he was born. His mom was in slavery and all that. Obi-Wan comes into contact with him, and no midichlorians, no fucking midichlorians. So the midichlorians, no midichlorians. So he sees Anakin, and he's like, "What the fuck, man? This dude is like a fucking son in the Force. What is this thing?" I think one of the chosen one's names was the Son of Sons. So that's keeping in there. So then he decides to this kid, the Force is drawing me to this boy. They meet up. They get taken care of. The whole pod racing. You got to keep the pod race scene because the pod race scene was actually really fucking epic. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if people say that it was filler. Anakin's pod race was an excellent scene in the Phantom Menace. It was really well done. And so Obi-Wan tries to save Anakin's mother, but he can't. So he bonds with Anakin. He's kind of like an older brother, father type figure, and he's teaching him little things about the Force, kind of like Qui-Gon did. How Qui-Gon was like, oh, you have to feel, open yourself up more. He helped him pretty much win the Boonta Eve Classic. So Obi-Wan is already kind of helping Anakin control his powers better, and Anakin is like I don't really trust you, but you got me free, but kind of fuck you for leaving my mother behind, but you're helping me out. So he's kind of wishy-washy right now. So they take him to of course they take them to what is the planet's name? Coruscant. There we go. Take him to Coruscant. They go. Palpatine and a member of the royal family, which is a 9-year-old little girl, they go and they're like, "Hey, you know what? We need help." And the little girl's like, "You guys need to help us." And they're like, "We're not going to listen to a little girl, but she's a member of the royal family, so they can't ignore her when she's talking on behalf of Naboo, of the Nubian people." So she's like, "You know what? According to my what's his name? According to my senator, he's saying that there's no trust in you, so vote of no confidence, get him out." And then Palpatine gets in. That's how we do it. They go back, of course, following the plot of Phantom Menace. They go back to Naboo, Obi Wan. Oh wait, hold on. Before that, again, we do that whole thing where they're like, we're not going to train him, and Qui Gon's like, this kid is super powerful. He's probably the chosen one, and they're like, well, you can't train him. You already have a trainer. He's like, well, have Obi Wan train him. He's good enough to graduate already. He should be a knight, and they're like, we'll decide who the knights are. You need to learn your place, Qui Gon. You're a great master. You're a great master of the Force, a great master of lightsaber combat. You're very knowledgeable, but you need to fucking listen to us because we're the council and we make the rules. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna do what I feel is right. And then he kind of goes rogue with Obi Wan. Obi Wan is like, he follows his master out of loyalty because he's like, I'm gonna go ahead and listen to you. They'll punish me, but they won't get rid of me because I'm strong, and I think they'll have use of me. So they go back to Naboo. The Nubian thing happens, and what do you call it? Anakin doesn't get in a plane this time. That was so unrealistic that he himself did that. So he and with R2 they're gonna hack a plane or something, or maybe he'll use hacking skills to completely sabotage the spaceship that's controlling the droids. Because there's gonna be a great battle, the great climactic scene. No Gungans though. Like, this is purely the Nubian people, only humans. So we're gonna keep that, and then the same thing happens. Uh, Mace Windu, Qui Gon dies at the hands of Darth Maul, and Obi Wan cuts him in half as per the ending. Everything goes back. They go back and they're like, okay, so what's gonna happen now? And he's like, well, you defeated this first Sith Lord in 1,000 years that we know of, so you're gonna you're definitely a knight. And he's like, well, you know what? I'm gonna train this boy. He needs me. My master believed that he was the chosen one. I'm not 100% sure if that's true, but this is a child that needs to be guided. If we don't guide him, then if we just send him away, then the Sith, we know that they're still back. They might get their hands on him. So the Jedi are like, okay, you've got a point. We'll reluctantly let him into the Order. So fast forward 10 years, as per the how Attack of the Clones, same thing. I want Obi-Wan and Anakin to have a better relationship. None of that back talk that they did. I mean, they'll disagree, but it's more playful and stuff like that. And we'll do the thing again with him having nightmares. Anakin has premonitions. So now, again, fast forward 10 years. Padme is she stepped into politics. She's 19. She's only been in politics for like a year, but she's young. She's idealistic. She's doing all this stuff, and people are trying to kill her. Regular stuff, and it'll continue to follow the plot. An assassin tries to get him. It's Jango Fett. Obi Wan follows the lead back to Camino. Anakin and Padme they get sent off to Naboo. Palpatine did that to prevent her from voting in the Senate and all that. And so they go back and they're there, and they start getting closer. Hopefully, much better, because fucking I don't know how to make it better. I'm not a writer. I'm not gonna like try and outline how they start falling in love. But they're both young. They're both idealistic. They're both kind of like, they have all of these qualities that they share, that they like in each other. And like I said, they're young. They're inexperienced. They're like, let's fucking do this, and they start hooking up. And then Anakin's like, yeah, I've been having nightmares, and I think she's dying. And Padme encourages him to go, so they go to Tatooine. That whole thing. Anakin's mother dies, and here's one thing that here's a scene that I want to include. Basically, Anakin doesn't go crazy, not at first. Anakin's mother is dead. He doesn't drag her. He carries her out of the hut, and he's accosted by two of the Sand people, two of the whatever you want to call them. Anyway, so they fight and he injures them, doesn't kill them. And as he's walking away with his mother's body, they get weapons and they shoot and they shoot Shmi's body. I don't want Anakin to just go crazy out of nowhere. I want him to be, you see little sparks of good in him still. And then after they damage his mother's body, she's got holes in her body now. She's recently dead 3, 4, 5 minutes, and all of a sudden they're desecrating her body. That's when he loses it. That's when he's like, you know what? I was gonna leave you guys alone, but fuck you. He slaughters them. He slaughters the men. And we're gonna leave some of the women and the children. He's not gonna go crazy and slaughter all of them, but he slaughters the men at least, or the ones who take up arms against him. That's better. So he leaves, and then he carries his mother's body, and they bury her and all that. And Anakin does not fucking tell Padme. That was the dumbest scene ever. He's like, I slaughtered them all, and she's like worried about him. That's insane. She should have turned tail and ran. She should have been like, fuck this shit. You're not right. That was a dumb scene in my opinion. Anyway, so he keeps it to himself, and he's kind of like suffering because of it. And he's like, I knew I fucked up. I shouldn't have killed that many people. They're down. Who knows how many? Either the desert will kill them, or another tribe of sand people will slaughter them, or something. But I fucked them up big time. And they go back to Geonosis and Q Battle of Geonosis, and they clash. Darth Tyrannus, Count Dooku. Darth Tyrannus is like, oh well, you know what? I'm gonna kill you guys. And Obi-Wan, here's someone that you know, or that you might remember. And Darth Maul comes out because I want Darth Maul to live. Darth Maul is going to be important later, and he's important to the Clone Wars series and all that. Darth Maul is basically going to replace why am I forgetting people's names? Darth Maul is going to replace General Grievous, because General Grievous in the cartoon was pretty good. In the Clone Wars series, he wasn't that great. He was okay. He was a decent character, but in the animated Gendy Tartakovsky series, he was a badass. But ultimately, when we saw him in the films, he was forgettable. He was a forgettable character. They introduced him out of nowhere. He was totally unnecessary, and Darth Maul is gonna basically replace him. So Darth Maul comes back. Obi-Wan's like, I killed you, and he's like, oh well, you didn't do a good job of it. And so they fight. Obi-Wan and Darth Maul have their battle, and Anakin attacks Dooku, and that's when he loses his arm. And Dooku gets confronted by Yoda before he can kill Anakin, and then they fight, and then they end up taking off. Dooku escapes, Darth Maul escapes. Obi-Wan's like, I thought I fucking killed him, but I didn't, and all this stuff is going down. Clone War starts, then the Clone War series, and Clone War series, you pretty much replace Darth Maul as one of the generals for the thing, and so basically the top guys are Darth Sidious, Darth Maul, and Darth Tyrannus. And at this point, Darth Sidious is like, you know what? Fuck the rule of two. I literally own the galaxy. I control the Separatists and I control the Republic, and it's only a matter of time before I turn the situation on its head enough to become emperor. And so I don't need the rule of two anymore, because now I'm going to need a network to control people and all that, and I need more Force users for that, because Darth Sidious did use a lot of Force users. He had acolytes, like the Inquisitors and stuff like that, and he had people that worked for him that were Force sensitive. He turned some Jedi, that sort of thing. So then we go into Revenge of the Sith, and Darth Sidious, Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus, and Darth Maul managed to kidnap Palpatine. Actually, you know what? Remove Maul from there. Darth Tyrannus captures Palpatine, and that whole beginning sequence goes as planned. And Anakin is manipulated by the Chancellor into killing Darth Maul, because he does have that little bit of darkness in him. Because this Anakin is going to be a bit. I don't want him to be, brooding or anything like that. But at the same time, like I said, he's lived in slavery. He lost his mother. He's he's a vicious warrior and all of that, and he still has that darkness in him. So when he's like, you know what? Count Dooku would be better dead than alive, because he can still control people. He's still a Force user. We might not be able to contain him. He could escape at any time. He's powerful, so might as well just remove him from the table. So he listens to Palpatine and he kills him. And Palpatine's like, okay, he's got this darkness in him. I think I'm gonna be able to turn him. And then go back. I'm pregnant, Anakin. That sort of thing. Better love banter because the love banter in the movie sucked. And the whole thing, and he starts the whole manipulations for the chancellor start appearing. Anakin's like, oh yeah, I'm on the council now, but they don't want to make me a master, so he's frustrated. He's not sleeping because he's having these visions of Padme and all of this stuff. And then finally, we kind of get to the climax where they send Obi-Wan after Darth Maul. They decided to send Obi-Wan after Darth Maul on planet I forgot the name of the planet, but you guys know which one I'm talking about. Where those guys are, the one with the headdress, and he's like, they're holding us hostage. That planet. So he goes there and he sees Darth Maul, great battle, and he finally kills Darth Maul. Darth Maul needs to die for closure for Obi-Wan, and he's kind of like signaling the end of the first trilogy. Darth Maul is dead. Darth Tyrannus is dead. So it's just Darth Sidious, and he's working on turning a thing. Oh yeah, damn it! I can't believe I forgot it. I've been focusing on the movies. Forgot about the Clone Wars. Darth Maul and Darth Tyrannus are training Asajj Ventress to be a Sith, and she eventually becomes a Sith that replaces Darth Maul. So we're still gonna have three Sith. By the end of Revenge of the Sith, we're gonna have Sidious, Asajj Ventress, whatever name we can come up with for her, and Darth Vader. So Anakin's like going crazy at this point. He's like, I have to save my wife. She's gonna die in childbirth. She's due pretty much any day now. So he's talking to the chancellor. The things come out. Blah blah blah. They confront him, and he's like, I need the chancellor. You can't fucking kill him. It's not only is it like, do I need him, but it's against our laws. And he's like, he's too dangerous to be kept alive. He betrays Mace Windu, and he's freaked out and all that, and he just decides might as well go all the way, and I have to save my wife. I'm gonna risk it all. I'm gonna gamble it all on Palpatine. And Palpatine's like, okay, you're Darth Vader now. Attack the temple. All of the everything follows as it was planned out. And finally we're on Mustafar. He kills all the separatists. What do you call it? He kills all the separatists. Padme shows up and she's like, "Hey, you don't do this. Let's not do this. Stop what you're doing. We can still stop the Chancellor. We can just go off and live in peace and be happy and all that." And he's like, "Oh, well, you betrayed me. Obi-Wan's like right here. You brought him here to kill me." And he force chokes her, and that's the whole thing. And then he lets her go. And then epic battle. The battle that they had was pretty epic. And here's the thing, but it ends exactly the same way. Better, hopefully, not that whole I've got the high ground, but what do you call it? He manages to chop off what's left of his arms and legs because he has a metal arm, and then he falls into the lava. And you were the chosen one, all of that. So he goes back on, and they get to the station where she gives birth, and they're like, yeah, she has like fractures in her neck, and she inhaled a lot of smoke. She's not gonna live, so we have to operate to get the babies out because dying of a broken heart is not a fucking thing. Anyway, so she's dying, she's losing blood pressure, all of that. She's got toxins in her body, carbon monoxide, all of that. They protected them, the Anakin and Obi-Wan protected themselves with the Force, like they would filter out any toxins and all that using the Force and all that. There's a technique for that, I'm sure. Anyway, so she's dying, and she's like, the last thing she does is she names the children, and she says, they're still good in him. There's still something there. You have to do something. He's suffering, and we need to help him. He doesn't need to be killed. He just needs to be reminded of who he is, or something like that. I don't know. And the movie ends. Darth Vader and Asajj Ventress and Darth Sidious and Asajj Ventress is going to be important later, and Vader's going to be there. And same ending, Tatooine, and Leia goes to Alderaan, all that stuff. Okay, now we get into the new trilogy, and the original trilogy, and this is where things are going to be different because since we told us a linear story, and this is simply the same story 20 years later, there are going to be some changes made. Big thing. I understand that the original trilogy was kind of a story of like the young boy who becomes a warrior and all of that. It's the same old tale that the young guy, he goes off on an adventure and he becomes a hero. Luke is already going to be trained in the Force. That was so stupid. He was meant to be the last hope of the Jedi to defeat the Sith, and you're telling me that you didn't start training him until he was 19, 20 years old, and he only had like 6 years of training, and that was enough to take on Darth Vader? That is bullshit. So this Luke has been training his whole life under Obi-Wan. He'll still be with Obi-Wan will be his teacher, his mentor, but his parents, his family will be Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen. So when they die, actually have him cry. That was such a dumb scene where he shows up and they're skeletons, and he's like, and that's it. Have him cry a little bit. It's okay to show emotion. The people who took care of him died, so he's like, okay, you know what? There's nothing for me here. I think it's time for us to leave. Obi-Wan's like, yeah, you're right. We're needed elsewhere now. So they take off to Alderaan. They meet Han Solo, get in that whole thing, end up on the Death Star, rescue Leia, get off. This story is pretty much progressing the same way. The only difference is that Luke is already like a trained Jedi. That's it. Like, or he's technically still a Padawan, and his master died on the Death Star. And they go back, they blow it up. Same storyline, same everything. So then we go into Revenge. Why am I forgetting this shit, man? I'm firing on all cylinders here, and I'm forgetting a ton of shit. So, Empire Strikes Back. They're on Hoth. Oh wait, let me go back a little bit. There was a character that I wanted to include. So at the end of the thing, they blow up the Death Star. You see in the last scene is not the last scene, but one of the ending scenes is you see the three Sith, Darth Sidious in as a hologram, and you see Darth Vader and Asajj Ventress, whatever her Darth name would be. What's a cool name? She was always she was always angry. She was calling herself Sith. She's like, I am Sith. I'm a Sith and all that. So what's anger? Ire. So Darth Era. Yeah, we'll call her Darth Era. Anyway, I was hoping I had some water. So Darth Era is in charge of the Inquisitors. She basically has these people that she trains, these Force sensitives. Not all the way. They're kind of Sith acolytes. They're not really ready to be Sith yet. And she's like, oh, this is my best student. I know you. She's worked with you in the past. My master, Darth Sidious. And it's Mara Jade. And I want to introduce Mara Jade because I think Mara Jade is a badass. She's my favorite character in all of Star Wars. Like she really is. So anyway, so this is me just wanting to include her. So she's like, okay, we're going to send her undercover because, the rebels are starting to get a bit uppity. So they send her in, and, maybe the last scene is she's like, oh, I'm a new recruit. I'm Mara Jade, and I'm going to be on the... I'm going to be your one of your new pilots, Luke Skywalker, and all that. So they meet and all that. And so, like, it opens up, and by Empire Strikes Back, Luke and Mara are in a relationship. This is important later. So they're hooking up, and Han and Leia are kind of hooking up. They kind of have like an on again, off again relationship because she kind of can't stand him because he's always so indecisive. He's like, I'm gonna leave, I'm not gonna leave. And finally, so we get into the story. Luke is out there. He gets attacked by a Wampa, or what was it, a Wampa? A Wampa. I think that's right, but the way I'm saying it, it's not coming out. It's not sounding right to me. Anyway, he gets by the Yeti and all that, so they're out looking for him, and then they're discovered by the Empire. And as Luke is getting ready to go battle the Empire, to go out in his plane, in his X-Fighter, he's stopped by Mara, and she's like, yeah, this whole time I've been a spy, and now I'm gonna kill you because my master said so. And Luke's like, I don't want to fight you, and they get into this big lightsaber battle thing, and they're fighting, and this is the first epic fight that we're seeing in the new trilogy, in the original trilogy by this point in my timeline. So they're fighting, and she's throwing lightning at him, and he's thrown for a loop because he's never actually fought a Sith. Like, he's a prodigy, and he's mastered all the techniques, but this is only against like training droids and stuff. He's never actually seen lightsaber combat. So even though technically on paper, in practice, he knows all of the techniques and everything, he's still green when it comes to applying them in combat. So she's dominating the fight until finally he manages to overpower her. And, then you hear like Darth Sidious's voice, and he's like, "Oh, you failed, and I want you to kill her, Luke Skywalker, and all that." And he's like, "I'm not gonna kill her. We don't execute prisoners. I'm a good guy." And he's like, "No, you're gonna kill her, or I will." And suddenly she's like being electrified, and so the Darth Sidious is doing this from like across the universe, just electrifying her. And Luke tries to save her by like he goes into her mind and all that. He disconnects her from Darth Sidious, and she's like passed out. And she's like, "Wow, I've been betrayed. This guy that I'm with, he tried to save me and all that." And she's confused and all that. So he puts her on a medical ship, and he's like, "Okay, get her out of here." And then we'll show a scene where they land for supplies or something. She knocks the guys out and takes the plane and takes off. She's gone now. So that's it. She's gone in the first half of the film. Not dead. She's just gone. So then he goes to Dagobah and he meets Yoda. Yoda's like, he's kind of angry and shit. He reminds me a lot of Anakin, like a lot. Like he's arrogant and all that. And yeah, he's seen some battles, but that's about it. And then he's like, "No, you have to teach me." And then he teaches him, and then finally he becomes a knight. And the whole thing with Cloud City, that thing's happening. Han still gets frozen, and then Luke again leaves his training. He goes and he confronts Darth Vader, and this time it's a huge fight, and he's completely getting dominated by Vader. And he managed to get a couple hits in, but ultimately it's just it's Vader. You're not gonna win. He had a tough time with Mara, so there's no way in fucking hell he's gonna beat Vader. Vader cuts off his hand. "I am your father." That whole thing. He drops down, and Leia manages to rescue him, and they take off, and the movie ends. And so it's years later. I think officially, I think it's 3 years after. I think after Empire Strikes Back, 3 years later is when they managed to go back and get Han, because the Empire knew that Han was in the clutches of Jabba the Hutt, and they knew that they were going to go back for their friend, so they had to unfortunately leave him alone for a long time until the heat died down. So I think it was like 3 years. I could be wrong. Some people say it was 1 year between the films, but it could have been three. Anyway, so this time it's years later, and Luke has been in seclusion. He didn't even go back to Dagobah. He went back to Tatooine, and he was living in Obi-Wan's old hut, and he's just been there meditating. And he's like, I know all these things about the Force, and I know all these skills and katas and everything, and I can't beat Vader. So the whole time he's just meditating. For 3 years, he's just there, and he's like trying to become more closer with the Force and all that. So finally, it's time to go rescue Han. It's time to go rescue Han, and they go back, and everything's kind of going the same way, because they decide not to just rescue Han. It's kind of like an attack on Jabba the Hutt. So they lead him out to the Sarlacc, and all that stuff is going down. They kill Jabba the Hutt. They free Han Solo, and they go back, and Obi-Wan, Leia and Han go back to the Rebellion, and Luke this time goes to Dagobah. And while they're setting things up, because they're setting up the plan to go attack the second Death Star, many Bothans died to retrieve this information. Anyway, so while they're setting that up, Luke goes back to Yoda, and he's like, Luke, Vader's my father. Why don't you tell me that? And he's like, well, blah blah blah, all this stuff. And he's like, I'm just one guy. Even if I dismantle the Empire, even if I manage to defeat Vader, how am I going to defeat Darth Sidious? And even if I defeat Darth Sidious, there's still Darth Ira and the Inquisitors, and he's feeling down, and he's like, it's impossible. I won't be able to do it. All this stuff. And he's like, don't worry, you'll have help. And like out of the caves of Dagobah, out walks Mara Jade, and she's like, yeah, I've been like around the galaxy. I did a stint as a smuggler, because she was a smuggler for she was a smuggler for a few years in the books and all that before she became a Jedi. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting out of hand. So yeah, she's like, I my whole life I was trained to be a Sith, to be an assassin. That's all I've ever done. I killed when I was 11 years old, and I worked for the Sith and all that. And he's like, you chose not to kill me. I was your enemy. And he's like, you could have killed me, and you chose not to. And she's like, everything we had together, yeah, I was under orders, but at the same time, it was kind of real. Blah blah blah. And he's like, and I want to help you. I found Yoda, and he trained me, and I want to help. And so Luke is like, all right, let's do this. So they go back, and she helps. She comes in, and she's like, oh well, we have to lead an attack over here also, because that's where the Sith is. That's where the Inquisitors are training, and they're Force users, so they're powerful, they're formidable. I have to go there, and I have to attack it. I have to take it, and I have to destroy Darth Ira. And so she's like, okay, so she goes on her mission. They go to I was gonna say Yavin 4, but it's not Yavin 4 yet. Yavin 4 is in the first movie. I was gonna say Dantooine that time. What the fuck? Endor. There we go. So they go to Endor, and Luke's like, okay, I'm gonna play sacrificial lamb. I'm gonna go see if I can talk Vader out of this because Vader's our father. That whole reveal. And so he goes and he confronts them. Vader's like, yeah, it's too late for me. There's no coming back for me. And he's like, okay, so they confront the Empire. He confronts the Emperor, and the Emperor's trying to talk him into it. There's the dogfights going on outside, and then you see Mara taking out this academy where they're training the Sith acolytes, and she's just killing people left and right, and until she confronts Darth Ira or Asajj Ventress and all that, and so all this stuff is going down, and the climax is finally he defeats Vader, and they manage to break through the defenses, so they're flying in to destroy the second Death Star, and finally Mara confronts Darth Ira, and then the whole thing with Vader. Vader turns on Sidious, kills him. Mara kills Darth Ira, and they finally launch the missiles and they blow up the Death Star. And Luke has to get the fuck out of there before he dies. So they celebrate on Endor, and the movie ends. Like that whole thing. And then we get into the seventh film. The seventh film, I don't think I would change much because the seventh film is a new chapter, and they kind of kept everything under wraps. One thing that I would change is fuck whatever the Knights of Ren are. I mean, you can still have them say that they're an assault team, but I still want there to be Sith. Sith are my favorite evil organization in all of fiction. Like they're like my top 10. And the fact that J.J. Abrams or maybe Kathleen Kennedy, whoever the fuck decided we're not going to use the Sith, fuck you guys. Like seriously, I wanted to see what the Sith were up to and everything, and you guys just got rid of them. So yeah, that's for you. Anyway, so it turns out that Darth Sidious, he planned upon plans upon plans. He made sure that the Sith would continue even after everyone died. So I don't know. He had there was a Sith temple that he, in case all the Sith die, all the Inquisitors you meet there, and then the Inquisitors took the lessons of the Sith, and now the Sith are reborn. One of them, will say that the Supreme Leader Snoke is a Sith. But we only know him as Snoke for now, and they're the, or you know what? Fuck it, Darth Snoke. I don't know what to call him, but Darth Snoke, and it's a Sith Empire. Because I've always wanted to see like the Sith Empire, like from the Old Republic and all that. But they never did it, and I don't know when we're gonna get an Old Republic film. But like, so it's the Sith Empire, the First Order. I don't know where they came up with that name, the First Order, but now it's the Sith Empire. Darth Snoke, just because I couldn't come up with a better name. Now they have a division called the Knights of Ren, where like the best assault team that they have, and Darth Caedus, Kylo Ren, fine, it's a cool name and all that, but in the comic books, he became Darth Caedus and all that. So yeah, so there's that, and he's the leader of the assault team. Luke Skywalker's missing because his academy was destroyed. The scavenger Rey, Finn betrays the First Order, and here's the thing: Finn is going to be Force sensitive. I always kind of feel that he was going to be Force sensitive, but they just decided against it. I mean, like, you're telling me that everybody in the First Order is brainwashed, and they're all like, "Oh, we must kill for the First Order. We must kill for the First Order. We must kill for the First Order," and all of a sudden, just Finn just happened to shrug that off and say, "You know what? I'm not going to." I think he was force sensitive, and when he went out on his first battle, he felt the death, he felt the destruction and everything all around him, and that shook him from his conditioning. That's what was stopped him, and he was like, "Wait a minute, I don't want to kill these people." And then his hesitance and his force sensitivity. That's why Kylo Ren turned and gave him that look. That 1,000 yard stare. Finn gets out of there with Poe. Crash lands. He meets up with Rey. They take off. They meet Han Solo. Han Solo's like, yeah, we had kids because I'm sorry, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. So they go to Takadana, and he's like, yeah, the Sith and Jedi are real, all of that. They meet up, and they're like, and Maz Kanata. I would make Maz Kanata a former Jedi because she was running that thing for like 1,000 years. That's a long fucking time, and we don't know how old she is. For all we know, she's 12, 1,300 years old. She could have been a Jedi for the first 300 years of her life, and then she left the Order because she mentions the Sith. And remember, the Sith disappeared for 1,000 years. So unless she's talking about the Sith in the recently, which is Darth Sidious and Darth Vader, she really would have no experience with them. So I think she encountered Sith before they went into seclusion, and then she retired from the Jedi Order because Jedi can leave, and she was a pirate, or she did her own thing, and then for 1,000 years she was a bartender, you know, until now. And in my head canon, Rey is Luke Skywalker's daughter. Everybody's saying that it's not. Recently, there have been comments from J.J. Abrams and all that saying that she's not. I think that she is. Some people are saying that she's Darth Obi-Wan's granddaughter or something like that. And however they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it because I have no control of what they're actually going to do. But in my film, in my story, she is Luke's daughter, and the way that went was when Darth Kaitis, when Ben Solo or was attacking the Jedi Order, her mother Mara Jade took her, and she was like, okay, you know what, you're only 10, 11, 12 years old, you're not gonna fight. So she takes her. She's like she has to put her in hiding. So she's gonna like go into her mind, and she's gonna lock down her memories or wipe them or whatever. And she's like, eventually we'll be back. And then she leaves her with Unkar Plutt, and she's like, you better take care of her because I'm a Jedi, and I'll know if you don't. Right now things are a little hectic. I can't protect her, but if she's not taken care of, I will be back and I will kill you. And then she goes back, confronts Kylo Ren or Darth Kaitis, but he overpowers her and kills her, and that's why she's left alone. Luke thinks she's dead. Luke knows for a fact Mara is dead, so he's like, everybody I know is dead. He can't sense his daughter anymore because she was wiped. She was blocked from the Force by her mother, so that's why he goes into seclusion. So that whole thing is going on. They get attacked by the Sith Order. They regroup at the rebellion, or is it the rebellion? No, the resistance, and they lead the attack on the Death Star. I'm sorry, Death Star 2. No, Death Star 2 is taken. Starkiller Base. So they lead the attack on Starkiller Base. Finn is leading them, and he's trying to get there, and he's barely coming into contact with the Force himself. They meet up. Darth Kaitis still kills his father. He gets injured by what's his name, Chewbacca. So they have this epic lightsaber battle. This whole final confrontation. Only Finn gets hurt, but he's not out of it. He's not in a coma, and so it ends. They get off the planet. They regroup. They get fixed up, and then they go together to go find Luke Skywalker, and they land on the planet because Finn is also, like I said, I want him to be Force sensitive. I want him to be a Jedi, so he's going to go with her to learn from Master Luke, and Luke's going to see her, and he's going to recognize her, but he's like distraught, and oh yeah, I thought about it. Yeah, so nah, never mind. I'm not going to include it. I thought about including like Jaina Solo, Kylo, basically Darth Kaitis' sister. But I don't know, it might muddle up the story too much. So for now we'll go ahead and say that she doesn't exist, or maybe Kylo Ren killed her. I don't know. So yeah, it ends like that, pretty much the same as the film. So yeah, so that's my version of Star Wars. Hopefully it's a lot, hopefully it makes more sense because the prequel trilogy didn't make a lot of sense, and The original trilogy doesn't make sense if you consider the prequel trilogy canon, because technically it is, and there was a lot of plot holes. Hopefully, it's a singular story that's told straight through, not too much, if they were films, hopefully they'd be good. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this little what if, this reimagining, whatever you want to call it, and happy Star Wars Day.